Welcome to the Myths and Legends channel. Today we will delve into the mysterious story of Medusa Gorgon, one of the most complex and multifaceted figures in ancient Greek mythology. Like many other heroes of these legends, her image evokes contradictory feelings. On one hand, Medusa is the embodiment of horror, fear, and death, but on the other, she represents a tragic beauty who became an unwilling victim of harsh fate and a cruel divine curse. There are several interpretations of her origins, however. The most common version is based on the work of the Roman poet Ovid, Metamorphoses. In this episode, we will tell you how Medusa transformed from a beautiful woman into a monster whose gaze turned people to stone, how her image became a symbol of medicine, and discover which great commanders she inspired throughout history. In those distant times, when the world was not yet ruled by the Olympic gods, the earth was under the power of mighty titans. Among them stood out Phorcys, the god of stormy seas, and his wife Keto, the mistress of the ocean depths. This pair of titans had 6 daughters, each possessing unique qualities. 3 of them were already old women at birth. Named after their father, they were called the Phorcids, but the gods gave them a new name, Graeae, meaning old women. The other 3 sisters were endowed with astonishing beauty. Their names have been preserved through the ages: Stano, Uriel, and Medusa. Together they were known as Gorgons, but only 2 of them, Stano and Uriel, were immortal. Medusa, though equally beautiful, remained mortal, like all ordinary people, despite her divine origin. According to Ovid, Medusa was not just beautiful, her hair shone with such splendor that it inspired envy in all who saw it. Her gaze was so enchanting that it could captivate not only the heart but also the soul of anyone who dared to look at her. The beauty of Medusa Gorgon played a dual role in her fate. It was both her blessing and her tragic curse. Her stunning appearance attracted the attention of many men, including the gods themselves. One of those who was not indifferent to the young beauty was Poseidon, the lord of the seas. Enchanted by her magnificence, he persistently sought her attention, but Medusa, proud and independent, repeatedly rejected his advances. However, this only fueled Poseidon's passion, and feeling insulted by her rejections, he began to pursue her everywhere. In despair, trying to escape the relentless harassment, Medusa sought refuge in Athena's temple, hoping that the goddess of protection and wisdom would shield her from the Sea Lord's advances. In her mind, the sacred walls of the temple should have been an insurmountable barrier against the passionate Poseidon. But neither the reverence for the temple nor divine laws could stop Poseidon's determination. Transforming into a bird, he entered the sacred space and forcibly claimed Medusa right at the goddess's altar. Upon learning of what had happened in her temple, Athena was enraged. Feeling a secret jealousy towards Medusa's incredible beauty, instead of showing justice and protecting her from injustice, Athena was engulfed in rage. Rather than helping, the goddess decided to punish the girl by transforming her into a horrific monster. Now, the exterior of the once magnificent sea maiden became the embodiment of terror. Instead of silky hair, thousands of hissing snakes writhed in wicked coils on her head. The skin that once shimmered with youth and beauty became covered in thick scales, so tough that even the sharpest blades could not cut through them. Medusa's hands, once delicate and graceful, turned into dreadful copper limbs with long steel claws. From her back sprouted broad wings covered in golden feathers, giving her appearance an even more terrifying aspect. Medusa's face changed beyond recognition. Instead of elegant features, beastly fangs appeared, and a long tongue hung from her mouth, ending in a rough, bristly chin. But the most dreadful gift placed upon her was her deadly curse. Now no one could enjoy her former beauty. Those who gazed into her eyes would immediately turn into stone statues, eternally frozen in a moment of horror. There are 2 versions of how Medusa's sisters, Steno and Uriel, also became monsters. The first states that after Poseidon defiled Medusa in the sacred temple, Athena, consumed by anger and fury, decided to punish not only Medusa, but also her sisters, turning them all into horrific monsters. The second version is more tragic. According to it, Steno and Uriel voluntarily wished to share their younger sister's fate out of deep love and compassion for her, willingly agreeing to become monsters to support Medusa. After their transformation, they realized the weight of their new fate. No one could bear to look at them, for anyone who dared to meet their gaze would immediately turn to stone. Deprived of the ability to live among people and gods, the 3 sisters understood that they had no place in the former world. Aware of this, they made the decision to go into voluntary exile on a distant, isolated island where they could not harm anyone. Over time, people began to forget that the Gorgon sisters were once innocent and pure beings. Instead, terrifying rumors spread among people about the monsters dwelling on the distant island, who either tore travelers apart or turned them to stone with their deadly gaze. Centuries passed, and the Gorgons themselves no longer remembered how they had turned into monsters. Grievances over injustice, as well as a thirst for vengeance, filled their hearts, plunging them into darkness. As the years went by, they truly became what they were perceived to be: horrific monsters bringing destruction and death to all that crossed their path. The cruelest among them turned out to be the youngest sister, Medusa, whose life was marred by injustice and a curse. She became bloodthirsty and merciless, harboring rage against the world that had treated her so cruelly. But one person dared to challenge this monster. He was Perseus, the brave son of Zeus and Danae, who was destined to prove his valor both to humans and gods. In search of glory and heroism, he set out on a deadly quest to fight Medusa herself and put an end to her bloody path. Of course, Athena could not remain indifferent to this event, for her hatred of Medusa had not waned even after many years. When Perseus was tasked with bringing back the head of Medusa Gorgon, the goddess of war hurried to assist the young hero, involving other gods in the endeavor. As a sign of support, Athena gifted him a brilliant bronze shield, so carefully polished that it reflected everything like a mirror, allowing Perseus to look at Medusa without meeting her deadly gaze. But the help of the gods did not stop there. From Hades, Perseus received a cap of invisibility, which allowed him to hide from the eyes of his enemies. Hermes, in turn, provided him with a special adamantine sword with a curved blade, capable of cutting through even a creature as strong and enchanted as Medusa. Hermes also gifted Perseus with winged sandals that gave him the ability to fly. In another version of the myth, it is mentioned that these magical sandals were given to him by nymphs. Fully armed and equipped with magical artifacts, Perseus was ready to fulfill his mission. However, the main challenge lay not so much in the battle with the monster but in finding the location where the Gorgons were hiding. Their whereabouts were shrouded in mystery, and the path to them was fraught with dangers and riddles. The Gorgons had been hiding for many centuries on a distant and deserted island, known only to their sisters, the Grey Eye. These three old women, aged since birth, shared one eye and one tooth among them. While one used the eye, the other two remained blind, and it was this weakness that Perseus decided to exploit. He set off to the far west, where these mysterious and ancient beings lived. Waiting for the right moment, Perseus cleverly snatched the Grey Eye's eye, blinding all three old women. Now sightless and helpless, they were forced to yield and point him toward the Gorgons. After this, Perseus headed to the island, where Medusa and her sisters hid. When he finally reached their lair, he found the monsters asleep. Using his winged sandals, Perseus quietly approached the sleeping Medusa, hoping to kill her before she awoke. However, Medusa, sensing the approaching danger, suddenly stirred. Attempting to turn Perseus to stone with her deadly gaze, she nearly caught him off guard. But thanks to Athena's shield, which reflected her image like a mirror, Perseus was able to avoid disaster by looking at Medusa only through its reflection. This allowed him to make the decisive blow and behead the monster, thus completing his perilous task. As soon as the opportunity arose, Perseus deftly severed Medusa's head and quickly hid it in a bag. At the moment of her death, Medusa was pregnant by Poseidon, who had dishonored her in Athena's temple. From the blood of the decapitated Gorgon sprang forth two wondrous beings, the winged horse Pegasus and the giant Chrysaor. Realizing that Medusa's other sisters, Steno and Euryale, might seek revenge for her death, Perseus used the cap of invisibility to escape. Putting it on and soaring away on his winged sandals, he silently left the island. According to legend, when Perseus flew over the Libyan desert, drops of Medusa's blood that fell onto the sand turned into sand snakes, which then threatened all living things in that barren land. And when his path lay over the ocean, the drops of blood that fell into the water transformed into the corals we know today. There is another version of this myth, according to which Medusa's blood possessed not only destructive, but also healing properties. Athena collected this blood in two vessels. One contained a deadly poison, while the other could resurrect and heal. She handed them to Asclepius, the legendary physician who became the patron of medicine and healing. Medusa's blood had unique and opposing properties. The blood collected from the left side of her body brought death, while the blood from the right side could grant life. Asclepius, the great physician of antiquity, used this blood to treat his patients. With one part, he could heal and resurrect, while the other could take life. Interestingly, Asclepius was always depicted with a staff around which a snake coiled, an emblem closely associated with the blood of Medusa Gorgon. The ancient Greek traveler and writer Pausanias mentioned that tamed snakes lived in the temple of Asclepius in Epidaurus, emphasizing this connection. The image of a snake coiling around a cup as a symbol of medicine appeared in the 16th century, thanks to the famous physician Paracelsus. Today, it is known worldwide and remains a symbol of medicine and healing. Even after her death, Medusa's head retained its magical power to turn all living things to stone. Perseus repeatedly used this on his way back. One such moment occurred when he returned home to find his mother, Danae, being pursued by King Polydex. Perseus showed the king the head of the Gorgon, and he, upon looking at it, instantly turned into a stone statue. After all the misadventures, Medusa's head was given to Athena, who placed it on her famous shield known as the Aegis of Athena. This shield, adorned with the head of the Gorgon, received the epithet Gorgonian. Since then, the image of Medusa's head became widely used in ancient culture. It was minted on coins, depicted on pottery, and worn as amulets, imbuing it with protective significance. Medusa gradually ceased to be seen as a terrifying monster that destroyed people and became a symbol of protection and strength. Warriors, as well as ordinary citizens, wore talismans bearing the image of Medusa's head, believing that it protected them from evil spells and misfortunes. The name Medusa, translated from ancient Greek, means protector or guardian, which only strengthened the belief in her protective abilities. The Gorgonian, the symbol of Medusa's head, over time transformed into a decorative element used in architecture for centuries, from antiquity to the Middle Ages. Medusa continued to hold an important place in the culture and history of many countries. Her image repeatedly surfaced in legends and myths, transforming into a symbol not only of horror but also of protection. In ancient times, there were legends that Alexander the Great possessed the magical head of the monster, as his military successes were so impressive that many did not believe they could be explained by human abilities. It was believed that a magical force might have been behind his victories. Ancient depictions of Alexander often featured the symbol of Medusa Gorgon's head on his armor, reflecting its veneration by the great commander. In modern times, the image of the Gorgon has not lost its significance. The depiction of Medusa's head, known as the Gorgonian, has become the emblem of the fashion house Versace and is also present on the official coat of arms of Sicily, emphasizing its centuries-old cultural heritage and pointing to a possible location of her demise. Interestingly, Medusa's image has even found its place in the night sky. In the constellation Perseus, there is a group of stars named the head of the Gorgon, which immortalizes her in astronomy. Over the centuries, the myth of Medusa has inspired numerous artists, sculptors, and poets who have turned to this complex and contradictory figure in their works. Today, Medusa continues to live on in popular culture. Her image can be seen in movies, animated films, video games, and other works of art. The Gorgon remains a symbol that unites the mythical and the modern, continuing to inspire and perplex people. As can be seen, the fate of Medusa Gorgon is more tragic than terrifying. She does not deserve the demonization attributed to her in modern tales, films, and cartoons. Medusa became a monster not by her own volition, and her transformation was an unjust punishment for the sins of others. This reveals the deep sadness of her story. Once she was an astonishingly beautiful girl, and her transformation into the most horrific creature in mythology only underscores the tragedy of her fate. This brings us to the end of our episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to not miss new videos. Thank you for your attention, and see you next time on the Myths and Legends channel.